Record.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Story Mantra. I'm Lindsay Preston, your co-host, here with my co-host, Anju Gattani, the Amazon bestseller for her Duty and Desire series. And we are here with our super special guest, Kathy Lyons, also known to some of you as Jade Lee. And we are super psyched to have her here today. And I will kick it off to Anju for further introduction.
Thank you, Lindsay. And we usually have one author, one guest. This time we get a two package combo deal. We're getting two authors in one because Kathy and Jade Lee is the same person with two very, very different genres. And here's the best part. Kathy and Jade Lee together combined haven't just written 3 or 4 books. They've written 60 books. And when I say 60, that's 60, not just 16, in case you're wondering. And that matches my yellow, that matches with my yellow outfit, by the way. But let me introduce you to Kathy and Jade Lee because I have known Kathy since 2004 when I first met her at a conference, and she is so professional. I thought she was one of the chief editors at Pocket Books, Simon Schuster, which goes to tell you how professional she is. And if you look at her book stack, you'll see it. So Kathy Lyons is the wild, adventurous half of USA Today bestselling author Jade Lee. So she is a USA Today bestselling author. A lover of all things fantastical, Kathy spent much of her childhood in Narnia, Middle-earth, Amber, and Earthsea. Meanwhile, Jade fell in love with historical romance. She adored all those ball gowns and rakish lords. Both Kathy and Jade have a gift for creating a lively, there you go, a lively world, witty dialogue, and hot, sexy humor.
This falls over in the middle. That's not my fault.
And she has Squidge with her too.
Oh, yeah.
There he is.
Oh, no, Squidge.
Now he's gone. Now he's fallen over.
Oh, well.
We don't edit on these videos, so everything is real time happening. Winner of several industry awards. She's a USA Today bestselling author, if I haven't said it already.
Skip that part.
Kathy has published 60 romance novels and says she's just getting started. I don't know what that means for me, who just came out with one book. Kathy, over to you.
Hi, how is everyone? I am so happy to be here. And Anju and Lindsay asked me to talk a little bit about how you hop genres, how you cross genre. So feel free to jump in with any questions, but I'll start with a little bit of history for how this happened for me. At the when I started, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, your publisher would not publish you more than about twice a year. I wrote faster than that. This has been my full-time job since my kids were very little. And so, anyway, so I wrote faster than that and I needed more of an outlet. So that's how I ended up with 2 publishers. So started out in historical romance, which I absolutely loved. And I grew up on, all those rakish lords and hot, sexy times. And actually, they weren't sexy back then when I was reading them. They were all traditional Regency romance. And then as I tried to get another publisher, I ended up, historical romance and fantasy, the whole world building kind of fit for me. So I leaped over into fantasy romance and then, paranormal romance, then straight romance, did a little sports romance. Inside romance, I have done, or I have tried every single subgenre. You will not find a mystery romance from me because I really suck at that.
I find it hard to believe.
I'm really bad at mystery. I'm more a character writer. The main thing I tell people when they're looking at different genres is that every genre has a core message. In romance, for example, it's love conquers all. So by the end of the book, your main characters have to have a committed love relationship, and that whatever problems they had, love was the solution. They overcame their past. They loved each other through the bad guy, whatever. Now you start getting the other subgenres. So, and In mystery, it's the justice will out. So the bad guy gets caught in mystery and justice is served at the end. In fantasy, those used to be all young adults, so it's like coming of age. Now it's more in line with good always defeats evil. And I'm trying to think what other subgenres there are, but as you hop subgenres or combine them, you have to satisfy the requirements of both genre. So the first thing you have to do when you're thinking of hopping genres, or even when you're writing as a commercial writer, is figure out what the absolute requirements of the story are to sell to that genre and make sure you hit those notes. And then if you're hopping to the other genre or trying to combine them, you've got to hit those other ones, whatever they may be.
What
So
about, Kathy, what about with multicultural when that comes in, for example, under the Jade Lee banner?
Well, the whole point of multicultural is that world building, is we want to see what it's like living as a Black person, as an Asian person, as, you know, and that's a little bit of the same with historicals. We want to read what it was like back in 1810. So the requirement of a multicultural is that we get some real intimate look at the things someone of a different culture, be they Asian, Black, Italian, Catholic, wolf shifters or vampires, whatever that culture is, we need to experience life how they see it.
And what about with other genres that start crossing in? For example, say if you have multicultural and then you bring in an element of the romance in. Now, how does that shift?
To have love conquering the so I had an editor who said that she thought all shapeshifter books, you know, the vampire and the werewolves and the whatever, that they were at their heart multiculturals, because it's how do I understand this entirely different way of life, and how do I introduce him to grandma? And that works whether you're talking Asian or Catholic or, you know, or werewolf. It's the idea of how, you know, oh, wait, I made a mistake. I cooked a ham for a, you know, a Jewish person who doesn't eat any type of pork. Oops. How do we get past that misconception? And that's a little silly one, but there can be, you know, really big cultural problems. How do I accept that? How do I learn to navigate that? And the other one, the one from the other culture, has to learn how to navigate our culture. So it's sort of looking at both of our cultures, and culture is a big word. It can be, how do you make the bed? It can be, what do you eat? It can also be, how do we raise the children? So, you know, all of that, because usually with love stories, especially multicultural, it's not just you and me meeting. It's you and me introduced to the grandparents and to the parents and to the nieces and nephews, and how are we going to have children? One of my best friends married a Greek man, and he loved dating the hot American chick. And he was the hippest American she ever managed or had ever met. It wasn't until they got married and she had their first son that all of a sudden there were some real Greek cultural stuff that he just assumed she would do. And she was like, I'm sorry. It was little things like when they went on vacation with his mother, his Greek mother, her husband and her mother-in-law would get one hotel room and she would have another hotel room with the kids. This
Oh,
is
wow.
very Greek. It apparently that's very common, and it was just assumed. And so when it first happened, she was a little bit of like, wait a moment, I'm sleeping with our sons and you're sleeping with your mother. Well, it was that respect thing, you know, she's the eldest, so she should have a bed to herself. And, you know, the husband is the head of the family. I mean, it was a cultural shift. And when I'm writing multicultural, that's cool. I'm really fascinated by that sort of stuff. And it, it can be very simple as who's driving the car, or, if you're, how do I introduce a werewolf to grandma?
Mhm.
Or, a loud, say a boisterous Italian struggle. I'm so sorry, that is my phone. Anyway, how would a boisterous Italian meet my very proper Chinese mother? And, I did date a boisterous Italian once, and that didn't work out real well. My mom was very polite, but there was that look in her eye.
So it's basically a conflict of values that comes in, right? I'm guessing the value system.
Well, it's a way to look at values. It's not really, because in general, and this is what you've got to bring out, is that each culture values, honesty, integrity, whatever. But like Asian families tend to be very, very quiet. And I saw a TV show once that was talking about how different cultures raise their children. And the commentator said, Japanese mothers do not like noisy children. And then they, hopped over to a Greek family event. And, they had the little boys and girls running wild through the house and making a lot of noise. And the Greek it's my boisterous, or it's my crazy Greek wedding.
Mm.
So that's not well, I guess it's kind of a difference of values or a clash of values, but it's more, I believe life is, especially writing and life is lived in the little moments, in the little details. So a mother-in-law who likes things quiet versus a mother-in-law who likes things loud, that's a little moment. It's not, you're not going to go to war. No country's going to go to war because the Greeks may be more boisterous than the Japanese. But when you're trying to navigate a family life or a personal life or a book, that's a little moment and a little detail that can grow into something bigger. So, okay, I can remember when I'm at the Japanese side to be quiet. I can remember, and actually I taught my kids this, when we visited my husband's American white Caucasian WASP family, we acted one way. When we visited my Chinese family, we acted another way. And the kids learned. But that was they could only learn that because I taught it to them, because I explained, you can't do this here, you can do this here. And my husband was willing to work with me on that as well. And that's what you need to put in the book. And that, for multicultural. So that clash or exploration of culture and ideas is very key to a multicultural, whereas it might not be key in a police procedural. So that goes back to, if you're hopping genres, and something I didn't mention before, number one, make sure you can sustain it, or hopefully sustain it. If you're expected to write 3 books a year in both genres, you might want to think about not hopping right then. But anyway, in terms of the writing itself, know what the requirements of your genre are and make sure you hit those notes. And yeah, you can forget one or add one or whatever, but if you're looking to market to a target audience, you need to meet that. You got to know what that audience wants.
And apart from knowing the core values, like you said, of each genre, and for example, you said, when you knew clearly from the beginning, mystery wasn't your thing. How did you determine what was your thing? Because a lot of authors are confused when they're looking at genres so what's the right way for me? And from that, how did you come up with the name Jade Lee?
Okay. You're not going to like my answer, but it is the most honest and true one that I can give you. I tried to write a mystery, that sucked at it. It was horrible. You've got to invest the time. And, I wrote historicals just because I had read a zillion historicals and that's what I loved. And so I kind of intuited what are the requirements of that line or of Regency romance. I did the same thing when I leaped into fantasy romance or paranormal romance. I read a zillion of them and I tried it and I loved it. And so, that's how you figure it out. As for how I became Jade Lee, I had a pen name. I was Catherine Grail originally. And back when I started, I was with Dorchester Publishing, but every publisher has a few, especially back then, this is before e-publishing, there's a set number of books. So the real prestige publishers would give you 2 or 3 books until you broke out. My publisher was Dorchester. It was not a prestige publisher. It was more of a volume publisher. Avon is also a volume publisher. And I won't get into all the details of what that means. But anyway, they gave me about 7 books as Catherine Grail to break out. I didn't. So I did not become Stephen King in historical romance then as Catherine Grail. So the publishers would come back to you and say, look, you didn't break out with 7 books or 3 books, 5 books, whatever that publisher's number was. But we like you. You deliver good books. You're professional. How about you try again with a new name? And so that's what you would see is author after author who's a steady producer would do, we'll say 5 to 7 books. And if they didn't break out, they would come up with a new concept or maybe a shift in genre a little bit or whatever. They'd do another 5 to 7 books with a new name. And if you broke out with that, hallelujah, then you are Stephen King or Nora Roberts. If you didn't, well, okay, try again, pick a new name. So Catherine Grail did not hit. And so it was time for me to try a new name. And my editor happened to be with me at a conference when my grandmother had passed in Hong Kong. And I got a call during the conference. My mother was calling me every day from Hong Kong to express her frustration with, it came out more like, do you know what that crazy woman wants me to do today?
Oh dear.
And the thing is, the crazy woman was gone. She was dead, but she had left instructions, including she wanted a traditional Chinese funeral, including 49 days of sobbing. So the family was supposed to quit. My mom had a job and she was in Hong Kong trying to deal with this. And she was supposed to cry for 49 days.
Oh, wow.
This was not going to work. And also she died in August and she wanted to be buried on an auspicious day, but the first auspicious day was 3.5 weeks later. And anyway.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
So my editor, Chris Kiesler, was there listening, overheard me going, it's okay, Mom, you don't have to cry for 49 days. It's okay, Mom, it'll be all right if she's not buried on an auspicious day. And just talking to my mother, and he said, you should do something with your Asian heritage. So we talked about it. I became Jade Lee, and Jet Li was big at the time. So it was kind of like, ooh, I'm Jade Lee.
Ah.
Spelled a little different, but anyway. And then I wrote the Tigress series, a set of historicals that was set in China, Shanghai, actually, at the the dates were 1999 and 1899 and 1900. So it's the turn of the other century.
Well, I've read 3 of those books in the 7. I remember that. And let me ask you, based on that, how would you translate what you went through to authors who now have the freedom to choose between one and the other genres or cross genres at will with self-publishing?
I have 2 absolutely conflicting pieces of advice. The first piece of advice is if you're inspired and you want to write it, give it a shot. So if you feel the urge to try a, futuristic police procedural on Mars, then, go for it. The opposite advice, which is the other, is in order to build your, so that's filling your creative soul. So, just if you feel it, write it, see what you can do with it. That's how you fill your creative well. The publishing side, though, if you want to build a market, I had an agent who said, not only do you stay on the same bus, meaning the same genre, stay on the same seat of the bus. So people can find you and know that you are delivering this type of product that they like. If you if you make a chocolate chip cookie that they think is the best chocolate chip cookie on the planet, and they come back to you for another chocolate chip cookie and instead get oatmeal raisin, there's going to be a little bit of well, I like the chocolate chip, but I really hate oatmeal raisin. So in terms of marketing, establish yourself in one genre before you branch. In terms of self-fulfillment, explore, write. But you've got to spend the hours. You've got to spend a lot of time writing down words, because if you don't think everything you try is going to work, because it won't.
Oh, Lindsay, do I get a question?
Nope, you are out of time. She does. I'm here. I'm the timekeeper, so I always feel like I'm cutting everyone off, and I apologize for my role.
And I'm always asking questions, and I can never stop because everything everybody says is so fascinating. But Lindsay, we're going to come back next week with Jade Lee and Kathy.
We will be back with both of them next week. And thank you so much, Kathy, for joining us and sharing your knowledge. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. Bye.